Hey everybody, I am Spegtacular, the Silverstacular. I'm honored to be here with Captain Mike Perna. Mike, you are big into the 1715 fleet, and I really want you to take the floor and tell people about what the 1715 fleet is and what you do to excavate some of these treasures from those crash sites.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you for having me on. Yep. So as you mentioned, my name is Mike Perna. I am a historic shipwreck salvager, and I grew up in the heart of the Treasure Coast in a town called Vero Beach. And the Treasure Coast is located on the east coast of Central Florida, basically. And 300 years ago, there was a fleet of Spanish galleons that was leaving the New World completely loaded down with plundered goods, and they were on their way back to Spain, back to the old world. And as they were leaving Havana, Cuba, they made it up the coast of Florida and were ravaged by, what would be a Category 4, Category 5 hurricane. And it drove all the ships, all but one of the ships ashore, and, huge, devastating loss of life. All the goods went to the bottom of the ocean floor and basically lost to the sands of time. And then fast forward 300 years later, you kind of get into the Kip Wagner, Mel Fisher days. And in the 1950s, scuba diving was becoming popular, and people were making their way out into the water to discover these wreck sites. And then fast forward again another 40, 50 years, guys like myself are still carrying that torch of that modern day salvage effort to try and recover what we can from those shipwrecks, their scattered remains.
What is the estimate? Do we have an estimate of like the total number value-wise today of the entire wreck worth value?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I think realistically it would be very difficult to pin something like that down. Although back when, especially the Spanish, were very detailed and good at their record keeping and their accounts. So with the research that's been done on the shipwrecks, there's a tremendous amount of knowledge about, the ships themselves plus their cargoes. But back when people were they were risking their life and limb to come to the new world in an effort to get their hands on as much as they possibly could. And so when they were going back, they were smuggling a lot of the goods that were on those ships. And, some of the historical accounts and modern day accounts tend to, kind of agree that there may be actually up to twice the amount of registered treasure in contraband. So, if a ship carried, let's say, 100,000 coins, there may have been 300,000 coins on that ship in contraband and smuggled goods. So to say, what has been recovered in the olden days with the Spanish and their recovery efforts into modern day salvage efforts, through the 1950s, those pioneers that I was mentioning, I mean, they obviously got a ton of treasure off the ocean floor. And then into guys like ourselves, it would just be really difficult to pin down a number. I think it's very safe to say, though, that there are tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars just alone in the 1715 fleet still laying out there in the ocean. But I will point out that many people believe that, or I think there's just maybe a misconception that when you think of a shipwreck, you kind of imagine like at the bottom of a fish tank or something like that. There's just this wreck laying there, and people go down and kind of breach the hull. That's not the case at all. These shipwrecks were completely demolished back when, and that was 300 years ago. And then since then, all of the subsequent hurricanes and currents and everything that you can imagine has strewn that material literally for miles. And if you were to swim over one of these shipwrecks today, you wouldn't even know it was there, honestly. There are some infield areas of where the main parts of the wrecks are, where there are still piles of cannons and maybe some ballast stones and stuff like that that you would see kind of protruding from the sand. But the remaining however many millions of dollars that are strewn out across the ocean floor are not only scattered so vastly, but there's no way you just would never see it without getting subsurface below the sand and trying to figure out what's down there.
I could only imagine what you guys go through being dark in the water, and then I mean, shoot, there's sharks in the water and stuff, and krakens maybe. I don't know, but you're surviving all this stuff, and then trying to find like little tiny pieces. You know what I mean? That are the same color as everything else down there, and covered with coral and other things that are growing over top of it. It's amazing to me. But you guys did find something big recently, right?
Yes, we did. This past summer has been very good to us.
Oh, what was that all about? You have a number, sort of, from what I see in the news. You guys have a number value, at least on that particular recovery.
That's correct. Yeah, we found just over 1,000 silver coins. So in my operation, we have a two-boat effort, and the second boat actually went out and made a stunning recovery in discovering a handful of silver coins on their third day out, believe it or not. And then as they kept going back to that spot over and over, it just kept yielding more and more coins. And by the end of the summer, the total count, I believe, was 1,051, if you can believe that. And mostly eights and fours. So with your denominations like you have there, those are the larger 1 ounce pieces of silver. Yep. And so mostly that size coinage, which is truly remarkable. A find like this hasn't been made on the 1715 fleet, just to put it into perspective, since the 90s. So, we're talking 30 something years or better that it's been since somebody's actually found a pile of coins like that. So, pretty cool. On the other boat, the boat that I'm actually on, we wound up discovering 5 gold coins as well. So much like that two escudo you've got there. On our first day out, we went down to a site down at Fort Pierce, and we call it our shakedown day because the boat's been in dry storage all winter long, and we get the boat ready, and this is kind of our day to shake the cobwebs off. And we went and made our first excavation and went down, checked the hole, nothing there, and then next thing you know, the second one yielded 3 gold coins, those two escudos, just like that, which was fantastic in and of itself. And then when we moved our operation up to Sebastian for the remainder of the summer, we wound up finding 2 big 8 escudos up there, which again is just a banner year for gold coins in that regard. And just so happens it was the cherry on top of this significant silver find.
I mean, you can't see me right now, Mike, because I got the camera on my stuff here. But I
Yeah.
have a big smile on my face because this stuff fascinates me. This is what I love about my hobby so much when it comes to precious metals is the stuff that's been buried for 300 plus years. You know what I mean? Just waiting for people like you, the treasure hunters, to come and excavate it, to give me a chance at maybe one day grabbing some of this stuff in a purchase. What is the process like that? Is this stuff like historic finds going to museums? Are collectors eventually going to be able to get maybe a couple of these pieces? How does that stuff work?
Yeah, no, you're spot on. So right now, what's going to happen is all of the coins have to be cleaned and graded and cataloged and put into a database. We create a base map that shows where all of the finds have been made. And so as we continue to go out and whether we find something in an area or don't, all of that information goes onto that base map. And then, yeah, there's a division process that takes place, and the state of Florida actually winds up with about 20% of the coins, or up to 20% of the coins that we discover. And then the remainder is spread out in that regard as well. Some of them winds up in public viewing, and some of it winds up in private collection. There are so many redundant pieces that it doesn't really serve academic or academia really in any great way to just stockpile the same coin over and over. So, in that way, a lot of those coins can then wind up in the public's hands, I guess.
Yeah, I mean,
Point,
I hope
point
for
of
that.
that point of that is that there's a good chance at some point in the future you can put a bid on one.
Oh, I can't wait. I mean, I get excited about that kind of stuff. That's my, like I said, that's my favorite thing to hopefully collect is any kind of artifacts or, coins from, especially the 1715 fleet wrecks. Always fascinated me. Real quick, this book right here, The Silver Treasure Chest, right? This was a fascinating book for me. You participated in this book as well. I mean, your name is right here. It must be you. Um, I found it very interesting, the process of excavating this stuff more than anything else, right? Your finds were great, but just the heartache and process. What can you give us a little bit about what that's like at all?
Yeah, I guess with regards to the silver chest or just in general.
I guess in general.
Yeah, in general, I mean, it's very much feast or famine and kind of hand to mouth. I've been able to persist at doing this now for about 25 years, and the reason why is because I've never had a car payment or a house payment or anything like that. So I just keep my responsibilities very, very low, and that enables me to kind of go longer stretches without getting paid. But when I first started doing this, I thought I was going to grab a metal detector and go out onto the beach and I'll be a millionaire before you know it. And that was certainly not the case. And so I discovered that I really need to get out there in the water where the material is and get after it. And after doing that now for 25 years, people think, oh, you found 1,000 coins. They estimated at near $1 million. You're going to be rich. And that's just really not the case. Guys like us, we're doing this for the passion and the history and everything that goes about being out on the sea and running boats and meeting interesting people and having experiences like this and being able to share the history of what we do. That's really the reward for us in a big way. But yeah, I mean, one thing you don't ever really see, and we say this often, is this isn't in the treasure books, is that's the truth. I mean, 95% of the time we're out there in areas where there is no material and we're just not finding anything. And the water clarity is oftentimes poor, especially in the areas where we work here along the Treasure Coast. Um, like you mentioned, there's sharks out there, and boat breakdowns and just everything, bad weather, everything you could imagine that would just kind of sully a good day out on the water. And that's most of the time that we're dealing with those things. And then every once in a while, we just have these pockets of glory, and some goodies come up, and then we're heroes for a time, and then we're back to kind of sucking mud and struggling to find the next find. So yeah, that's all part of it. I think you could probably make an analogy or go synonymously with any kind of dream chasing, right? Like there's going to be a tremendous amount of failure before you have some amount of success. And the key to the whole thing is persistence. But start running boats out in the ocean. I think it takes it up maybe a little bit of a notch, and that's adds to the romantic side of why these tales of treasure coming out of the ocean off of shipwrecks is so luring and interesting. Yeah.
And you can't just be any average person with a boat, right? You have to actually have a agreement with Florida and like licenses to do this stuff.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. So, part of my boilerplate shtick that I have to convey is that you're absolutely right. We are 100% legal in what we do, and there are rules and regulations and laws about antiquities, obviously, and shipwrecks and all this kind of stuff. And I'm actually a subcontractor through a group called Queen's Jewels LLC, and they hold the admiralty rights to the wreck sites out there. And then I subcontract through them, and that gives me basically, the ability to work under their permits legitimately.
And I've heard this. I mean, it's going to come from your mouth, the truth, I suppose. Florida gets like a percentage of all the fines first.
That's correct. So whenever guys first started going out there and making these recoveries, they were, obviously bringing up a tremendous amount of quote unquote wealth. And needless to say, the government wants to get involved in that. But, when you start to break into the ethics of it and whatever, this is our local history. And so it made sense that the state of Florida should wind up with some of that material. Obviously, it didn't seem fair to strip these guys of their hard earned labor and take everything. And so that worked itself out in a court process. And in the 80s, they discovered that the state of Florida, a good number for them is up to 20%. And so, like I mentioned earlier, it does nobody in the public tax roll any benefit to take thousands and thousands of a 1714 Mexico 8 real that there, are just thousands and thousands of representative samples of, and then house them in some room somewhere under lock and key and armed guard and air conditioning for in in perpetuity. That's not really doing anybody and on the public tax roll any good paying for that. But some of it should wind up in museums so that people can enjoy this material into the future. So it's not all in private collections, but also it can be studied, and much like I'm sure your fascination and my fascination with this stuff, there's just something kind of a visceral response that happens when you hold a piece of 300-year-old shipwreck treasure in your hand, piece of gold or piece of silver. I mean, almost instantaneously your imagination fires up and your creativity gets to working, and you start thinking about who held the treasure last and the journey that treasure's been on and all of these things. And all of that is very, very positive. And so being able to go to a museum and see that kind of stuff, I mean, who knows what that may spark in a young person or somebody into the future to do who knows what with their life. So all of that again is super positive and worth preserving.
Now, Mike, you mentioned a great word that wants to lead me to my next point is study. So when it comes to the reals or the escudos, there's so many varieties out there, and so people are trying to, try to, and it's like a snowflake in some cases where they're just like individual, like single known pieces. Here's another example right here is this plate that was in this book, and without going too far, I want people to actually purchase the book and read it because it's fascinating. But something like this. there was a lot of studying involved trying to figure out what the heck it was. How does that process go? Do you know anything about that?
Yeah, so I'm sorry, the plate you mentioned?
Yes, the plate.
Yeah, it's interesting because we still don't know specifically what that plate was used for. There's, a couple different terms, and an archaeological term is a roundel, and it's just like a basic blanket term for a round disc, of undescript usage. But yeah, that's kind of it. The disc itself is fascinating, obviously, because of the depiction on there and the workmanship. The fact that we found one and then found two that were identical. But when you turn it over, there's actually a threaded rod and a nut that go on inside that actually fixed it to something. And there's a bunch of different theories that are out there as far as what this thing was used for, but nobody knows for sure. And yeah, that's all part of it. I mean, there are so many things like that we discover that. Well, let me say this: because everything was made handmade back when, every piece is unique. And so much like all of the coins, even though you have the same type of coin, each one has kind of a different shape and size, and relative weight and look to them. And so they're, like you said, a fingerprint or a snowflake, they're all unique. But, then you find something that you're not even quite sure what it was used for. That just adds to the mystery and really, um, that's the kind of thing that people who are really into this kind of stuff geek out on, and they can dive super deep into it and do the research and really try and track those things down. And with those silver roundels in particular, we've had several people who have done just that, and they've come up with some great theories. But that's kind of just it. Right now, they're still theories. We can't say definitively that that's in fact what those were used for. So yeah, it's incredible that you would think that something like that would come up, and it's only 300 years ago. I mean, if you ever travel to Europe or Italy or one of these places, I mean, obviously there's representative samples for everything everywhere, and then to find something like that that's absolutely unique and everybody scratches their head, it's pretty cool.
Now, where can people find this book right now?
Oh yeah, so actually, I think they're putting a link on the Queen's Jewels website, and if I'm not mistaken, it's 1715fleetqueensjewels.com. But yeah, if you're interested, there are definitely copies of that available. I helped Sal, and my name just wound up on that. Sal Gattuso was the primary person who put that together, and he put together another publication. One of the things that we're doing more recently is putting out things like this in an effort to just kind of help with the academic side of what we're doing and share that information, because since the 1960s there is just so much data and information about the different finds that have been made that Queen's Jewels has acquired basically. And so as we move forward, Sal, and maybe myself, like with this book, we're just going to continue to hopefully put out publications like this. And those people who are really interested in the fleet and want to take a deeper dive into the history and learn more about it in that way, this is a great way to do that. And we're already thinking about maybe doing something like that for this upcoming or for this recent find. Is having an upcoming book that will go ahead and just catalog all of the 1,000+ coins that were found this summer, and show front and back, and so that whole collection will kind of remain intact in that way. And same thing for just future people to then have an opportunity to look at all those coins and marvel in them.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm gonna, also promote real quick because I believe you're a member. I'm a member of the 1715 Fleet Society, and that's a great place to, get information. So the information of your treasure find was on the 1715 Fleet Society, and other, monthly treasures or whatnot, or opportunities for people that are interested in the 1715 Fleet are also on there. So if it's okay, I'll put, the Queen Jewels website so they can grab this book, and I'll put the 1715 Fleet Society in the description below so people can easily access some information.
Yeah, thanks. I love that. Yeah, and you're absolutely right. The Fleet Society is a great organization. I think that they've kind of, well, with Queen's Jewels and what's going on there and the Fleet Society, there's a great, kind of symbiosis or union that's forming, and in the information sharing, because they're a great way to disseminate this type of information and put it out to the public, because they are so active in sharing, like with the Treasure of the Month and that kind of stuff. And so we're definitely all about, promoting that and keeping that going in the right direction. Again, we're just keep sharing that history. It's we all love it so much, and other people find it fascinating too. And especially through the Fleet Society, that's a great place to really start to, you know, jump in with both feet and learn a lot about what's going on out here.
Awesome. Now, I see that you're not on the boat today. What's the
Yeah.
plans for the upcoming future? What do you got going on?
Yeah, believe it or not, we're this is just a dive season, which sounds strange, but where we're at along the coast out here, the wind just blows and blows and blows all winter long, and then it just stops blowing for the summertime, and the clearer water that is in the Gulf Stream current kind of moves a little closer to shore, and so the water clears up. So pretty much the majority of the time of the year, we can't work out here just because the seas are either too rough or too dirty. And then in the summertime, somewhere around May, June, it clears right up, and then we're able to get after it. So it's like a diving boot camp, and we go as much as we possibly can. And then one day the wind just starts blowing, and then it doesn't stop again until the next summer, basically. So it's kind of a drag, but that's kind of where we're at right now. All of that is to say that the season is over, unfortunately, and so we park the boat on dry land, and then we're back to trying to figure out what it is we're going to do for the winter time. But good problem to have. We have over 1,000 coins that need to be conserved, and we started the process. And I would say conservatively, we're looking at an estimated 20 minutes per coin. So just doing the brass taxes on that number, we have quite a bit of work ahead of us just to clean the coins, photograph, weigh them both pre and post conservation, and then get those coins entered into the database, and then get the pedigrees with the certificate of authenticities created and all of that good stuff, and get ready for the upcoming division of the material. So yeah, it's so no shortage of things to do upcoming.
Sounds like a lot of work. One more thing, because I could just sit there talking to you for hours. But the conservation product process, I want to kind of show off something I got right here, and maybe this is something similar to what you deal with. Let me see. Oh my goodness, know that every wreck is going to be a little unique in what goes on down there. But here's a piece that I have right here, and of some 4 reals, and they have a piece of like coral on top. Is this the kind of stuff that you would find something like that, and you got to fix it?
Yeah, totally. It just depends. The coins. So the coins that were in this particular collection that we just found was in fact in a bag, and we feel very confident about that because many of the coins still have the imprint of the burlap sack in the concretion itself, and so you can clearly see the pattern. And it seems likely that the coins would have been in a bag because that's how they transported them. And it's also likely that uh, if they were in an actual quote unquote chest, there would be 3 bags of 1,000. And so we've found now 1,000 and with evidence of a bag. So there's always the possibility that there'd be more. But the point of saying all that is that when that bag went to the ocean floor, many of the coins kind of sat on top of each other, which enabled them to fuse themselves together. Not as many as you would think in this collection, and the reason why I believe is because they're a little closer to shore, and so they were susceptible to some heavy surf action, which was able to kind of scatter the coins around. And rather than that whole bag going to the ocean floor and then remaining in an area that you would imagine to be maybe 3 foot in diameter, they were actually scattered out over an area that was about 25 feet square. So, a little bit bigger of a footprint. So that all equates to there weren't as many clumps as what we call them, but there were several. And so, if coins wind up going down into the ocean floor and then wind up in a little pocket and they sit on top of each other and the waves aren't able to move them, they'll fuse together just like what you have there. And those make really, really awesome, kind of presentation pieces, but they're just great artifacts. And, some people get creative and clean parts of the incrustation off, and you'll see, it'll expose part of the coin and stuff, just like what you have there. It's just a really uh, pretty artifact.
Yeah, it's great. Listen, Mike, anytime you find something you want to come in and just let me pick your brain about things going on with the 1715 fleet or anything going on out in the seas, I would appreciate you coming back for sure. But I greatly respect and appreciate your time, and it was awesome that you guys found such an amazing piece of history. Congratulations on that, and I hope that you get more and more and more, man. I'm really hopeful for you guys.
Yeah, right on. Thank you very much. I appreciate all the well wishes. And yeah, I'd love to come back and do it. Thanks again for, giving me the opportunity to share little bit of the history of what we're doing out here. And yeah, I'll absolutely do it again. Thank you.
I'll keep the comments open if anybody wants to go ahead and just, congratulate Mike and his team, or, maybe you have any thoughts down below, make sure you comment. But Mike, once again, thank you very much. And, good luck out there.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. Okay. Talk
All
to you
right,
again.
bye-bye. Well, hello, everybody. I seek to educate and entertain through my journey of collecting coins and stacking precious metals. I encourage you to subscribe and please stay with me on this journey. I am Spegtacular, the Silver Stacular. When I was a kid, we did this every day in school, and I believe we need to bring this back a little bit, and I'm going to start right now. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.